We finally had a super speedway race with no controversy. Only four cautions on the entire day, a 60 lap green flag run to end the race with no last lap crash, and the winner edging out the runner up by half a car length. On paper, you think it was a great race. But then you go back and rewatch it and you realize there was barely any action, no passing outside of strategy, and the same 2 to 3 guys fighting for the win in the final stretch of the race with no lead changes. That's the state of Gen 7 Superspeedway racing right now. It sucks. This race was night and day compared to the Xfinity race on Saturday. As soon as the green flag came out, the field goes 4 wide. And again, on paper, it sounds exciting. But when you actually watch the race, you will notice that the entire field was gridlock with no chance to make moves as everyone just paced around half throttle saving fuel. And then, when it's go time, the race turns chaotic with the only way forward being to shove the daylights out of the guy in front of you to move forward, which will inevitably lead to an accident. Now, thankfully this didn't happen on Sunday's race, but we had several close calls all throughout, okay? My point still stands. This doesn't faze me anymore. I know what's up with this Gen 7 car. It may look aesthetically pleasing to the casual fan because they're so bunched up together and they're 4 wide, but us the diehards know better. This is not exciting at all. I will say this though, there was more action up front compared to what we saw at Daytona, but that was only up front, and even then it was barely. It's not saying much anyways. Again, this was nothing like the Xfinity race where you could go from the back to the front and move between lanes no matter your track position and, actually make moves if you wanted to. The guys mid-pack were stuck where they were for the most part because they just had no room to move. Again, they were boxed in. It was really frustrating to watch. And then later in stage 1, when the Toyotas decide to go full throttle, the moment they do, the other 2 lanes die and it becomes single file up front. This car's just so terrible, man. Now, at least there were a couple cautions that kept the race interesting, and since it seemed like every driver was on a different fuel strategy, that shuffled the field around a bit too. Both of these early cautions were for accidents too, that took out a handful of big players. The first one came during green flag pit stops. Brad Keselowski, I don't know if it was some miscommunication between him and Kyle Busch, or if Kyle was unaware he was going to pit that lap, or if Brad slowed down at the wrong time and it caught a couple people off guard. But the two of them got together, spun out, and Brad even got a piece of Ryan Blaney, who was trying to thread the needle on that wreck, and his tolling got bent so badly he was not able to continue. So for Blaney, this is his 4th DNF of the season already, the most of all drivers. But at least his wreck was not as vicious as Christopher Bell's, because on the ensuing restart, he got pushed by Hamlin coming off turn 2, big mistake by the 11 obviously. Even if the 20's handling was poor getting up to speed, you never push somebody off the corner like that. Bell collected a 17 of Buescher to his inside and they both wrecked hard on the backstretch. Bell's hit in particular was very similar to Connor Silage in the Xfinity race. It looked bad, it was bad, but thankfully he was okay. At least it's clear to race at Texas, unlike Silage, who's gonna have to miss that race because of lower back pain. And just like that, 2/3 of RFK Racing have been taken out. Only Ryan Preece was left out there. And again, like I said, this allowed stage 1 to end on a shootout where we managed to see the field actually go 3 wide full throttle for a moment. Obviously, I didn't expect this to happen over the course of a long run, but for a short run, it was pretty thrilling to watch. There were several close calls here and there, especially when they tried to go 4 wide, but thankfully they kept it clean. Maybe partially because it was just for a stage win and not the actual race win, but still. Kyle Larson came out with the stage win, his first ever stage win on a super speedway, and he went on to finish 3rd in stage 2 despite a speeding penalty during the stage break. So a really good points haul for him at a track type where he self-admittedly doesn't run the best. Bubba Wallace also got some big stage points. He won stage 2 and finished 5th in stage 1. And stage 2, unlike the first stage, ran green all the way. Although a caution should have probably come out during green flag pit stops for the 42 of John Hunter coming off pit road, running over one of the weepers on the track. Remember that it rained on Friday, and spinning out. No one else was involved, but considering there were cars on the track going full throttle on the tri-oval, as well as coming off pit road at the time, it's kind of wild that race control didn't throw the yellow. That was a very dicey situation out there. But yeah, after both stages were done with and the strategy board was reset, the Toyotas picked up where they left off. That is, going full throttle and the front of the field going single file, just logging laps until the final pit cycle. And they probably would have gotten away with an easy win if Ross Chastain didn't throw one of the most daring blocks I have ever seen someone throw, and coming off pit road no less. He wasn't even full speed yet. This move killed all of the Toyota's momentum and just sent them back to the mid-pack, or kept them mid-pack because they were about to go out and pass those guys because they were running full throttle, and because track position actually mattered on super speedways with this Gen 7 car. They never recovered from that and didn't fight for the win. They went from potentially sweeping the top 5 spots to only one car finishing in the top 10, that being Bubba Wallace, who finished 8th. This left the race to be decided between Austin Cindric and the Hendrick cars of Larson, Byron, and Alex Bowman. But at some point during that final stretch, Ryan Preece managed to take command of the top lane. And I would have told you exactly when that was if I knew, because Fox, for some inexplicable reason, went on not one, but 2 side-by-side commercial breaks in the last 15 laps. Absolutely unacceptable. And I don't think that was just in the last 15 laps. They went side by side constantly, like every 5 to 10 laps. It was jarring to watch. I believe I got the Limu Emu ad stuck on my head now. Limu Emu and Doug. Like, what the fuck? It was already hard for me to get invested on this race. Why would I want to watch commercials every 5 to 10 laps? Granted, they never went to full screen commercials, but still, they just went constantly on commercial breaks. The racing was piss poor, especially for what we expect out of super speedways. The coverage was piss poor, with the same commercials airing every 10 to 15 minutes. Again, the only saving grace was that this race didn't end on any last lap crash or controversy. Although, you could argue the controversy was the quality of the race in general, and also Elton Sawyer's comments after the race, which really riled a lot of people up, myself included. Like, how are you going to use the number of lead changes to justify the race being good when we all know no one was making a move? Most of those were not even real lead changes. They were simply one guy that just happened to be in front of the rest of the pack by a nose coming to the start-finish line. So, yeah, by definition, they count because it was a different guy leading laps every time. But if you actually watch the race, you know what I'm talking about. So, because of that, I'm giving this race a C-, albeit just barely. If anything happened on the last lap, like what happened at the end of the Xfinity race, I would have bumped my grade down to a D or even an F. And I believe I've never given a Cup race an F, so that's saying a lot. As for driver of the day, like I said, I really didn't care about this race a lot, so it was really hard for me to find a suitable candidate. Kyle Larson had a surprisingly good day, winning stage 1 and finishing 3rd in stage 2. And I've noticed he's starting to get some results on super speedways. I mean, in the fall race at Talladega last year, he finished 4th. Now he finished 3rd at Atlanta earlier this year. And he finished 3rd in this race, but with Ryan Preece and Joey Logano getting disqualified, he's officially credited with a 2nd place finish for this race. Now, Ryan Preece, the guy who actually finished 2nd to Cindric, and you gotta remember, Ryan Preece spent more than 2/3 of the race by himself after Keselowski and Chris Buescher wrecked out in stage 1, just to get disqualified during post-race tech inspection. So if you're counting at home, RFK lost Keselowski and Buescher to crashes early on. And after Preece almost squeaked out a win, the tech gods dropped the hammer on him, and his runner-up becomes a 38th place finish. All of this happening at one of their best tracks too. This is just brutal stuff out there. And Preece wasn't the only guy who got disqualified. Joey Logano got hit by the tech gods too, although in Joey's case there probably was a little bit of karma involved because during the last lap of stage 2 Logano got mad. And I mean, he got really mad at Cindric. Like, his radio at that moment sounded like Kurt Busch back in the day with all those curse words coming out of him. Of course, Logano was mad at Cindric because he didn't push him to the stage win, even though he caught in front of him during the tri-oval, killing the entire momentum of that line. And look, I like Joe Logano. I like the mindset with how he approaches every race, and I understand his frustration, but what did you want Cindric to do here? Keep pushing you and cause an accident that would have no doubt taken out at least 10 cars, if not more? Yeah, I'm sorry, but I cannot defend Logano on this one. And apparently the tech gods agree with me because, like I said, he got disqualified and his 5th place finish became a 39th. That would have been Logano's first top 5 of the season too. So now we're 10 races in and the defending champion has not scored a top 5 yet. That's gotta be a record. And even more fitting, that very teammate he was upset at went on to win the race, Austin Cindric. And because I can't think of anyone else, I guess I'll just give driver of the day to him. Besides, he's been one of the more underrated surprises of this season, and hopefully people will start taking notice now. Again, if it wasn't for that Coda penalty, he would be top 10 in points right now. Not to mention, this was a very important year for him, with the news that his father would no longer be involved with the team's NASCAR operations, and people were questioning his future because Cindric has been there because of his father. He was brought into NASCAR because of his father, largely. But it's safe to say Cindric might have just bought himself a couple more years on that number 2 car with that win, even if his father leaves. But man, this month of April has been a complete bust in terms of NASCAR Cup racing. I remember we were looking forward to a lot of fan favorite tracks like Darlington, Bristol, and Talladega, and they all turned out to be stinkers. Who would have thought that Rockingham would be the only positive of that entire month? And that was largely because there was no Cup racing happening that week. Look, it's gotten to a point where people are actually starting to look forward to Texas, even if it's because of the chaos and attrition that racetrack brings. But given the Gen 7's recent track record, it wouldn't surprise me if the racing ends up becoming subpar or below subpar. It's really tough when you think about it like that, man.